Hey, what's going on today, guys? It's Trey. Welcome back to the channel. As always, welcome back to sunny, beautiful Germany. Today, I want to talk to you guys about the time that we got pulled over by the German Bundespolizei. So, without further ado, stay tuned. Let's get into it. So if you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Trey. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really value you guys. And really what we talk about on this channel is primarily life in Germany. And by the way, if you hear some like commotion in the background, or if you hear like the little footsteps, or if you even see a little head going by, I promise you that's not a ghost. It is actually my son, Golden. Promise you my place isn't haunted. So back in 2019, we actually came here to Europe and we went on a trip to the Netherlands and to Belgium. While doing so, we ended up flying into Dusseldorf. It's really not that long of a drive to get from Dusseldorf to Amsterdam, so that's really what we did. So we spent a few days in Amsterdam, had an amazing time, and we actually drove down to Belgium and we had an amazing time there. We did Bruges, we did Ghent, we did Brussels. We had an amazing time. Now, while we were crossing the Dutch border into Germany, we actually noticed that there was this pretty shoddy family station wagon that overtook us from the left lane, pulled in front of us, and proceeded to slow down. So right out the gate, I'm thinking, babe, what's going on here? Why is this car pulling in front of us and slowing down? Then I noticed in the back window, literally some like gas station, convenience store lights started to scroll by saying, pull over, German police, basically saying pull over in numerous languages. So I had never seen anything like this before. I obviously didn't ask too many questions. I proceeded to follow the car off the Autobahn, basically onto like a dirt gravel road. So pretty scary, not something that really I've ever had to deal with before. The two gentlemen walked up. They proceeded to tell us to roll down their windows and they told us that, hey, you know, you just crossed into Germany. We are the German police. By the way, they spoke perfect English, like flawless English. I almost thought they were American. That's what kind of made me a little bit skeptical too, but they spoke amazing English. They told us who they were. They informed us what the stop was for. They told us that the purpose of the stop was to monitor drug trafficking in Germany and specifically from the Netherlands into Germany. And they just asked us some basic questions. So at this point in the interaction, they just basically asked us if we had any drugs on us. They asked us if we had been doing any drugs, and they asked us if we were under the influence of drugs. So obviously, pretty basic questions. You know, they just want to make sure that everything's okay. That was really the end of the interaction. They didn't search the car. They didn't search us. They didn't ask us if the car belonged to us. Really, the only interrogative question that they asked us was where we were from, which obviously we're American. We carry our US passports on us. And judging by this accent here, obviously we're from the US. So it was actually a really smooth experience. You know, I told you earlier on in the video that I really got myself worked up about it. And really the reason why I got so worked up is because of the interactions that I've had with law enforcement in the US. And so what I want to do right now is talk to you guys about a few interactions that I've had with law enforcement in the US. We're gonna talk about Border Patrol, we're gonna talk about the police, we're gonna talk about state police. So yeah, let's get into it. So as I've mentioned in prior videos and past videos that I've made, I am Latino. I have a super Latino name, first and last. And whenever I've interacted with Border Patrol, whenever I'm coming back into the US, I always get flagged. My passport always gets flagged. I always get searched. I end up having to spend time in the back speaking to somebody, getting interrogated. So, and the reason why that is obviously because of my name, right? Super Latino name. I'm young as well, or I'm a younger guy. So people always ask like, what are you doing in this country? What are you doing in the Middle East? What are you doing in Europe? What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Why were you there so long? You know, how many countries did you go on? Just literally interrogating the life out of me, expecting me to slip up or expecting me to be some drug trafficker or to be, you know, some drug dealer or just doing something with drugs, being a terrorist. I always get questioned like that. And so one time I actually flew into Miami International Airport, and at the time I was dating this young woman in Chicago, and I brought her back some sand from Dubai. That actually ended up being a big mistake, and it created a major issue for me personally. And honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, it actually created somewhat of a national security incident. So after checking my bags and questioning me and stuff, I actually ended up getting taken in the back by the DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Agency in the US. I also Ended up having to speak to ICE as well. Even though I'm an American citizen, I ended up getting questioned by all of these groups, and obviously TSA ended up questioning me as well. So it was not a good time. I got grilled. They ended up dumping out all of the sand. It wasn't a good time. And honestly, they treated me like a second-class citizen. They didn't treat me like an American citizen. And sadly, they probably treated me like what they treat most immigrants like that are coming into the US. So that's just one bad incident that I've had with American law enforcement. Another incident that I want to talk about is one time my wife and I actually ended up getting in a car accident right after our vacation in Orlando. It was pouring down rain. I wasn't speeding. My BMW M3, on the other hand, was wrecked. It was totaled. It was just not a good day. We were very thankful to be alive, but it was not a good day. So luckily some bystanders let us stay in their car because it was pouring down rain. But then the authorities came and they wanted to make sure that we were okay. Once we got to the hospital, we ended up getting questioned by the Florida Highway Patrol. And there was this one officer in particular who was just straight up a D-I-C-K. He was not nice. He didn't show any empathy. You know, we literally have blood leaking from us, and he was just not nice at all. He was just flat out rude. I don't have any issue with being interrogated because I'm not gonna slip up, right? We were on vacation. I don't do drugs. Why on earth would I purposely get into a car accident? So these are all questions that this officer was asking me, and he was just treating us horribly. And the thing that really pissed me off was he blamed me for the accident. He told me that there's no way this car accident could have happened without you speeding. You knew it was storming. Why on earth were you driving? You had to have been driving over 80 miles per hour. Where everything really went south in our interaction was he flat out accused me of speeding. He told me that there was no possible way that we could get in a car accident of this manner. He told me that he's been patrolling this stretch of highway for 20 plus years and he's never seen an accident of this sort. And he ended up actually giving me a reckless driving ticket, which in the US, if you get a reckless driving ticket, you're in a mess of trouble, right? You have to obviously deal with the courts, you have to pay massive fines, and sometimes you actually will end up having your driver's license suspended. And so that's actually something that we ended up having to deal with. He told me that I didn't care about my wife. He told me that I didn't care about her. He told me that I essentially just had a death wish. All of these things while we're in the hospital, right? Bleeding, it's pouring down rain outside. We just got into this big accident. Things you wouldn't imagine somebody in law enforcement saying to you. These are all things that are being said to me, right? So it was a really unfortunate incident. I got really heated. The hospital staff ended up having to hold him back because he kept getting in my face as well. It was just all around a really bad situation. The final bad incident I want to talk to you guys about, it actually happened when I was a kid. So if I haven't mentioned this, I grew up with two parents that had amazing jobs, right? My father works in radiology, and then my mom has worked in law. She has worked in the legal system. She's been a court reporter for as long as I've known. I used to see her on Court TV. For you Americans out there, I'm probably sure you remember Court TV, but it just used to be a station where they would show some of the largest court cases happening in the US. And I can remember one time my mom picked me up from school. We got pulled over by a police officer, and it was probably the most eye-opening experience that I've ever had, and one of the worst experiences that I've ever seen with law enforcement in person. So not to say that like I've been pulled over a lot with my mom, but I've been pulled over with my mom. She's black. She drives a nicer car, and unfortunately, when you're black and drive a nicer car in the US, in most places you end up getting profiled by the police. So yeah, the officer was he was nasty, man. Like not only did he pull my mom out of the car and pull me out of the car, keep in mind, I'm like 11 years old at the time. I'm like 10, 11 years old. Pulled me out of the car. And yeah, I don't know what it is, but he just kept grilling my mom about the car, asking her about the year, asking her about the make. It's almost like he thought the car was stolen. And you gotta remember, like I mentioned, my mom has worked in the legal system for years. She was a court reporter in the state of Florida for years. She had a nice suit on, you know, she was dressed very nice. And I'm not saying that you should be treated nicer or worse depending upon how, you know, what you're wearing, but she just didn't fit the profile of a quote unquote criminal. And plus she had me in the car, but he just treated my mom so nasty, man. Like, you know, the interaction ended up taking 30 plus minutes. He ended up calling for backup all over a traffic violation, right? And the worst part about it is, so it ended up being a speeding ticket, but my mom was only going 4 miles over the speed limit. So, you know, it's one of those things that really stuck with me as a kid. I'm not gonna lie, it created such like anger in me towards law enforcement, right? Because I've been pulled over with my mom numerous times. I haven't been pulled over as much with my dad, but with my mom, she's been pulled over a lot just for basic traffic violations, and it's sort of been the same experience. And it just really frustrated me as a kid. And I'm not gonna lie, you know, it created a lot of distrust for law enforcement for me purposely. So that's really the last bad thing that happened, but I want to talk to you guys about a good interaction that I've had with law enforcement in the States. I was driving home from Tampa back to South Florida, and I was on Yeehaw Junction, that one place that I mentioned in my last video, a place you never want to be, right? I was actually in my BMW E92 M3. This was before the car accident. And guys, there was one stretch of highway where it's literally just a straight shot for like 20 miles. There's no curves, there's no bumps. It's flat paved road. Any car enthusiast out there knows what I'm talking about. This is like walking into a donut shop and seeing every single favorite donut that you love in life and it all being free. That's what that stretch of road was like for me. But so me being, you know, young and dumb like I was, I decided to really open her up, and I got my car up to 130 miles per hour. At that time, my car was stage 2 tuned. It could get up to actually 160 miles per hour, but I decided to only keep it at 130, right? And so sadly, this Florida Highway Patrol actually got me. He pulled me over, and something pretty shocking happened. The very first thing out of his mouth was, "Man, you were really getting on it. This is a nice car." So right out the gate, that interaction with me, like, he broke down the barriers, he broke down the walls, you know, he just was cool. He said something that I never ever thought I would hear Florida Highway Patrol say. He kind of joked with me about speeding. He told me that the car was nice. And after that, we had literally like a 10-minute conversation just about my car. We even talked about his car. And it just so happens that I had my camera sitting in the passenger seat. Turns out he was a photographer, so we talked about photography for like another 5 minutes. And so that 15 to 20-minute interaction that I had with that officer was very good. It was hands down one of the best interactions that I've ever had with law enforcement. So while I don't want you guys to think that every interaction that I've had with law enforcement is bad, I've also had good ones, and that one specifically was really great. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Obviously, like, there's good and bad officers everywhere in the States, but sadly, you know, the relationship between the citizenry in the United States and law enforcement is not the best right now, and in fact, it's in shambles. There's blatant distrust. There's police officers out there that are just violating people's rights left and right, and sadly, there's people out there that just don't know the law. They don't understand, you know, how things work. They don't understand the rights that they have, right? And you know, like one of my favorite channels on YouTube says, Amagansett Press, if you don't flex your rights, if you don't flex your muscles, you're gonna lose them. And so I really think that moving forward, there's gotta be something done in the US in terms of police and community relationships, because at the end of the day, police officers are public servants, right? You know, I know we call them law enforcement, but they don't enforce laws. That's not their primary purpose. Their primary purpose is to detain, arrest, and basically get you to jail and allow the courts to do what they do and allow the law to be enforced. So really, they're just, you know, that's their job at the end of the day. So yeah, policing in the US is very different from policing in Germany, right? The ideologies are different. You know, obviously the laws are very different in Germany, but I can just tell that personally for me, I feel more comfortable around law enforcement in Germany than I do in the US. And that's just based off of experiences that I've had. Not other experiences that other people have had, right? Because I'm not gonna say that I feel a certain way about entities without me having experienced, you know, treatment from those entities, right? So for example, what I mean by that is if somebody were to say, Trey, McDonald's sucks, right? I'm not just gonna go walking around telling people that McDonald's sucks without going there. I'm gonna go there, try a burger, and then formulate my opinion myself, right? So I don't want you guys to think that I'm the type of person that hears somebody say something and then takes that as the gospel. I just think that the two entities are very different, right? The two mindsets of American policing versus German policing are very different, right? So I was really impressed with the level of professionalism, that these individuals had. You know, as I mentioned, they didn't yank us out of the car. They didn't search the car. They didn't like do a breathalyzer test. They didn't ask us, you know, where we were headed. And so obviously we've traveled to different countries since we've lived here in Europe, and I can tell that just policing is totally different. And obviously I'm not like hoping to have to deal with law enforcement in Germany, right? I think the number one thing that I did enjoy about the interaction with German law enforcement is I didn't feel like my life was at risk, right? There was no hand on the weapon. There was no, sir, step out of the car. There was no grilling me about what type of car it was. I just felt safe. You know, people should feel safe around law enforcement. I'm not sure what Germans consider law enforcement to be, but from where I come from in the US, law enforcement, the police on the other hand, they are public servants. They are there to serve the public, right? Our tax dollars in the States go towards the police, right? To police cars, to police precincts, you know, to basically police equipment. We pay for the police to be able to do what they do, which shouldn't be intimidation tactics. There's something wrong happening in the US with American policing. And most importantly, I didn't feel like it was a life or death situation. One of the scariest things for me personally is seeing police lights in your rear view mirror in the US. For me, that is a terrifying situation. Like I can't explain it to you unless you've experienced it, but it's a terrifying situation. And I've been in predicaments where I've been detained on a traffic stop. I've been handcuffed during a traffic stop. I've had my vehicle searched during a traffic stop. I've been grilled left and right about what type of car I have. You know, I've been asked whether or not I have any warrants, you know, and I understand that the warrant thing is a basic question, but I've been continuously asked, like, are you sure you don't have any warrants? Like, well, I've got your ID, and like my dispatch just said that you have a warrant, and obviously the cop knows I don't have a warrant. So it's like they're expecting me to slip up or lie or be this dishonest person, and it's like, dude, you pulled me over for a broken taillight. Why are you grilling me about this? Why are you searching my car? Why are you ripping me out of my vehicle, right? Why are you questioning about the vehicle that I own? You can tell that this is a nicer vehicle. Why are you asking me these crazy questions about it? Like, just this isn't the way that it should be. I know that that is an experience and an interaction that I will never ever have with German law enforcement or with the Bundespolizei. So for a lot of people in the States, a simple traffic stop can be considered a life or death situation. You know, I know that probably sounds crazy to a lot of my German followers out there, but that's just the point that we're at in the US, right? There's a massive distrust for law enforcement. A lot of people don't have faith in the legal system. Things are crazy in the States. And I think that one thing that can be drastically improved on is just the relations between the police and the citizenry. You know, I know I've mentioned that a lot in this video, but yeah, I'm telling you right now, I don't think I can ever foresee a situation where I don't feel safe in the presence of German law enforcement at all. One thing that I really appreciated too is like they were really, the Bundespolizei, they were very just friendly and genuine, and they asked us how our trip was, and like, I could never picture that happening in the States. You know, I hope that that was a pretty informative video for you guys. And I know I like to make these videos where I'm talking about experiences that we've had here in Germany and then comparing them to what we've had in the US. But yeah, you know, as I always say, if you guys have any questions for me personally, please, whatever you do, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. As always, I will leave my Instagram in the description, so feel free to DM me. And by the way, to everybody out there that has actually sent me a message via Instagram, I cannot thank you enough. I think that the conversations that we've had, you guys know who you are specifically, they have been invaluable to me, right? So, you know, I don't want anybody to think that I have thin skin. If you feel like I'm saying something that's wrong, message me. Just shoot me a message, educate me, talk to me, right? And I hope that I can help to educate you guys in a number of ways. I don't think that society will continue to move forward if people are just constantly upset and angry and offended and thin-skinned, and you know, I don't want this channel to be that type of place, right? There's gonna be some very difficult topics that are addressed on this channel. I'm gonna say some things that you aren't gonna necessarily agree with on this channel. But I want you to know that at the end of the day, I still respect all of you. I still appreciate all of you. And if we ever disagree on something, just let me know, right? There's nothing that you can tell me that's gonna offend me, right? I have some of the thickest skin out there, and I hope that we can just have dialogue. I hope that we can converse, and I learn best from other people. I know that was a little bit of a rant there at the end, but as always, thank you guys for the continued love and support. Thank you. Mahalo for watching.